Good evening. Welcome to Community and Technology, where we connect the global community with news, information, and resources that we hope will help improve your life. I'm Stu Reid, and I'm here with a special broadcast with my emergency broadcast team. We have some esteemed guests, very experienced in the whole emergency preparedness movement, if you will. First, there's Mr. Wali Abdun-Noor, who's the president and founder of the Community Emergency Response Network, the Harlem Emergency Network, and the New York North Emergency Network. Welcome, Wally.
Welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
And Ms. Carol Johnson, who is also a founding member of HEN and 9N New York Emergency Network and East Harlem COAD. Welcome, Carol.
Thank you, Stu. It's great to be here.
And last but certainly not least is Anesta Vannoy-Kwame, who's a member of the Harlem Emergency Network, New York North Emergency Network. Welcome, Anesta.
Thank you for inviting me.
Sure. Well, you know, September is the emergency preparedness month throughout the country. And I think it's only fitting that we be talking about emergency preparedness, especially in light of the storm we had last week, Hurricane Ida, that hit New York in some ways kind of unexpectedly, I thought. We were kind of warned that we were going to have heavy rain and some wind, but I kind of thought that the city and surrounding areas, I'm in Westchester, was kind of caught unawares. I don't know if you folks felt that way, but I was not prepared for the severity of the rain. What was your reaction?
Well, basically, most people in this area do not take warnings seriously. And it's not so much just their fault, but we have been spared quite a bit in the past from various types of disasters. But when they hit hard. Take like 9/11, okay? Take like the pandemic. When the pandemic hit us hard. So, and the problem here, one of the problems here is that I think we forget too quickly. They hit, we deal with it as best as we can, and then that's it. And then we take it for granted again that it'll be another 10 years before we have another one, even though it comes 10 days later. Okay, that's what I think. So I think that we don't really take these warnings and these situations serious enough.
Another problem is that the authorities, FEMA, NISM, NIDIS, other organizations tell us all the time that our survival during an emergency is actually in our own hands. We cannot depend on first responders, the fire department, the police department, the city, the state, or anybody. We must be resilient in ourselves and prepare ourselves for emergencies. And that's what I will be talking about later on.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I can piggyback off of that the most important part of an emergency is that is first of all mitigation, you know, lessening the severity of whatever happens. You know, I think the other problem is that we don't want to think about emergencies. People don't want to think about emergencies. Even in the midst of an emergency, people don't want to think about that. You know, HEN teaches the yo-yo method, you're on your own. People need to recognize, as Anesta said, that you are your first responder. It's happening to you at that location where you are, and it's how you respond. And so basically, I think the problem is it lies on the people themselves, not the first responders, because there's too many organizations like ours that are out there volunteering, trying to teach people about emergency preparation. I have never done a presentation without talking about pandemics, sheltering in place, not if it happens, but when it happens, and people don't take it seriously. and it's something that they don't want. And the first thing they want to do is pick up the phone. And that's their major mistake in a lot of cases. Picking up the phone, you're putting yourself in more danger while you're dialing, sitting on hold. And there's something right there at your fingertips that you could do in order to save your life and those around you.
Yeah, I know for me personally, I got caught short being out on the road. I guess I was not paying close enough attention to the warnings, and I thought that the heavy rain was going to come later. And I ended up taking my daughter to and then from a program about 7 o'clock and then 9 o'clock. And the 9 o'clock return trip was very scary. You could hardly see on the highways. And even when I got off of the highway into my local community, it even got worse, which surprised me. The sheets of rain were coming down so thick, I could not see the street. You could see water rushing down the middle of the street, and it was harrowing, to say the least. And I kind of really reprimanded myself and with my family for being out there and putting ourselves at risk like that when I really should have been home. And I think that's one of the big things I think that both Wali and Carol just underscoring, that we kind of deny it. We don't really embrace it. We don't really pay attention. Oh, it's not going to hit me, and boom. It could have been much more devastating for me personally because I was out there in it. And that was a very poor decision on my part. I see Brother Khalil is with us. Khalil Abdul-Wahhab, welcome, brother.
Hey, thank you, man.
Thank you. Khalil is from the Northeast Bronx Emergency Network and also a member of the New York North Emergency Network team. Khalil, we're just talking about the recent storm and, how prepared we were and how well we reacted. Carol's last point, I think, is really important, and that is, the whole yo-yo kind of understanding is that you're on your own. You can't really expect other folks to be there for you, and we have to take responsibility for ourselves and our own families in these situations. What was your experience with the storm, Khalil?
Well, here in Co-op City, there was water damage. It surprised me. We have a lot of high rises, and the water damage was not to the townhouse structures so much as to the larger building structures where the water went down into basement areas and forced elevators to stop. It also got into the administrative area and caused some communication problems with the equipment there. The point is well made. If you didn't have to go out in that mess, you shouldn't be out in that mess. And we have to weigh and measure what we're capable of against what's going on. And with the conditions worsening as they are with climate change, affecting a whole bunch of stuff, we have to be especially careful and good Lord willing, properly prepared as much as we can be.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, again, I'm going back to my experience. What hit me over and above the flooding in my home, which happened, was the transportation issue and just how affected the roads were and the rails were. Subway shut down. I saw videos of flooding in the Harlem subways and other subways. It was incredible. You saw torrential rain pouring in. Amtrak shut down. Metro North shut down. And, I'm just wondering, to me, the city is not prepared for that kind of weather event. And, I'm wondering whether there's some things that we need to do within our own communities to raise consciousness and raise awareness about transportation and how vulnerable the transportation systems are in these events.
A thought came, traveling from a meeting that he had home, a member of the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene was able to call into the Zello network to report various problems that he saw on his way home, the network. One of the things that I had mentioned before we've talked about is that, okay, what's the input and what's the output? Who's going to receive the information as we acquire it? Where are we going to acquire it from? What information is important? That's something that we will be, I guess, thinking about and going through as we go back to enhancing the SOP, the standard operating procedure for a network. It's very important that we be able to report things just as you were speaking about. Buses couldn't run, trains stopped running, but not every subway station or not every subway train was affected where it had to stop. It was not every train, it was a large number, but not every. And so that kind of information is something, if we got it, we would want to be able to give it to individuals within the community, because we're going to be the supplemental network, supplemental group to the major communications networks, if they should need it, if they should need us. It was mentioned that, I'm going to be brief on this, it was mentioned that CDS-1 was able to give New York emergency management information about the Rockaways. Well, that was because they were out there and they had a specific target to give that information to. Nice. If we're going to be serving communities, we need to know who we're going to give stuff to. Can we set things up where when we give, let's say with you, Stu, let's say I say, okay, I see that the flood has reached this area, and I call you, Stu, the flood has reached, I don't know, 167th Street in Prospect. And you, at that point, alert some folks who are near or associated with businesses, whatever, entities near and on 167th Street and Prospect Avenue, or Prospect Avenue in general. That keeps the community aware of that makes the community aware of what's going on. It also supports the network and the processing of information, input, output.
I'd like to say in that scenario, there has to be in advance the setup. The community, and this is going back to our previous conversation before you were able to arrive, that the community is not taking this the emergency situation seriously enough that they will commit to participating in organizations and exercises and what is needed to make what you say work, because how would we be able to get that information out if we are supposed to stay in? You understand? We need to be able to communicate with people in the community that are already signed up, who are already equipped to receive and to give out this information. So it goes back to the original conversation that we had here, is that I think one of the major problems is that the community in general is not taking this situation seriously enough. And although you had cars underwater, trains underwater, in certain communities, it didn't affect that much. And so therefore, those people in those communities, they, to them, it's just another day. So I think that some kind of way, this people, New York City people, need to start to really look more seriously at this type of situation.
So you don't think that was a real wake-up call for New Yorkers of what happened last week, Wally, or not for many New Yorkers?
I think that those that it hit directly, like you,
Mm-hmm.
you saw it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they they woke up, and then even some of them are going to go back to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
But for those that it didn't hit, which probably is the majority, no, it's just another day.
Mm-hmm.
It's another wet day.
It would seem to me that's true. The public in general is only concerned when their pockets, their closed circle of influence is hit. Very true. And that's always true. That's always been true. The task for us is to find those individuals within the community who are willing and able, who are understanding of what's before us and what has happened and the seriousness of what has happened, and understand that planning and preparation in advance is what's going to help them get through events and disasters such as we had with Ida's aftermath. And we can do that. I mean, there are people who will be engaged. So how do you start? Well, you start small. You have those who are willing to engage and move on from them. There's an old expression, build upon success. Each success allows room for the next success.
What you're talking about is true. The NISM FEMA is depending on local and organizations to help them get out the message. And they've been doing this for years. The situation being that people depend on other people. They're not taking responsibility for their own lives and their own survival. But it does take the local organizations to be involved and to push out, which is the term used, the necessity for people to be involved, to take responsibility for themselves, to plan, to gather the things that they need to gather, to communicate what they need to communicate, and do whatever mitigation that they can do in response before a catastrophe.
It sounds like we got a big job to do in terms of just kind of raising awareness out there. Maybe that's something we need to think about as a group, or our group, New York Emergency Network, New York North Emergency Network, to think about an awareness campaign that we could do in our communities to help raise awareness about some of the stuff. In that regard, I was wondering whether or not anybody got any information about the flood zones and how flooding affected Harlem. I know back in Sandy, a lot of areas got flooded that were not expected to be flooded, and the city redrafted and reprioritized the flood zones. Do we have any information on the flooding zones in Harlem with this past weather event? Anybody know anything?
I do know that I am waiting for the updated flood zones. They rewrote it, and they just rewrote it recently, and it's supposed to be sent to me. And when I get them, I will share them. But there are the zones have been redrawn. And I think also the evacuation centers have been also redone. So that's something that's coming out.
Mm-hmm.
That's something we need to stay on top of, Stu, because oftentimes when they redraft those things, because the flood zones would change drastically after Sandy. I have to give credit to my late third chief, Richard Toussaint. We spent hours with NISM forcing them to change those flood zones. And after Sandy, after Irene, when high rises on the eastern seaboard that weren't part of East Harlem, but they were on East on the East River were affected, and we saw like 73 cars during Irene was affected in like places like Esplanade Gardens. And so now we saw Sandy and it was like 175 cars. And so we went in, even where I live, I'm right on the FDR Drive. I was a zone 3, my building is now a 1. My entire development is now a 1. And a lot of the Eastern Seaboard that really suffer the water damage has been upgraded. But oftentimes when you allow different public officials to go in and sit at those meetings and they don't have people like us in those meetings, they will change those zones and put you back in the danger that other people got you out of. And so we have to stay on top of that. We have to learn what continuity of operations, what a coup plan is. Because as an organization, we can't function unless we understand what our functionality is. And as a coordinating agency, how you're gonna operate with the other organizations that you bring in. What is their usage to you? What can they bring to the table? Do they understand how this thing works? Also, as a governing agency, we have to train these people. But first, we have to train ourselves. It starts at home. We have to train ourselves to understand the incident command system, to understand the COOP system, and how we work as a team. Because we can talk from now until doomsday about we got to get stuff out to the community. You can't get anything out to the community unless you have a plan. And who are you getting it to? Because each one of those organizations that's a part of our main organization has to have the same plan. They have to understand incident command too, not at the broad level, the basic level, that there's certain people in their organization that has to be designated to do certain things. Everybody in the organization should not be calling all over the place. That needs to go into a certain area. Like we have an incident command here. We have public information. We have planning. And we stay in our lanes, but we have to pull the other people in that come in, and they have to function according to the basic plan. And it really is a basic plan. We don't convolute it, just keep it real simple. And at that point, we can take representatives into these places, into the mayor's meetings, into the governor's meetings, into the different elected official meetings, and be at the table and tell them what we need. Why? Because we live here. You just visit once a year when something happens in our neighborhood. That's when we see you. But most of us live in these places. On the hyper local level is where the work needs to be done. Hyper local. Very simply, a small group branching out, bringing in not the entire organization, representatives from each one of those organizations, coming back, sitting at the table with us, taking it back to their organization so that they can understand how this thing works. Because you don't need 500 people on your team and you only got 200 people that's working. So communications, phone trees, there's a lot of different things that go into that, and until we can get that straight, we won't be much of a help to communities at large.
Wally, what's your reaction? Carol is saying that we got a lot of homework to do on the ground, it sounds like. What are you thinking?
Actually, she hit it on the head. She hit it on the head. First of all, we have to deal with it from organizations, houses of worship, businesses. This is who we want to get to, because they have the customers. In your community, everybody either goes to the store, goes to the church, is in an organization, goes to the laundromat. So you have to deal with the places where the groups utilize, and that way you can get the information out. But again, like Carol says, that those particular groups, the businesses, the houses of worship, the organizations, they have to understand exactly how the whole system works, or else they're not going to do their job. Okay? And so our job is to try to get to the organizations, even get to the organizations that have organizations, get to the coalitions in our community, because that's even better. If you can get to the coalitions, then the coalitions, they have organizations, and then the organizations have members. And then each member has a group of people that they influence. So you have to work through this hierarchy, and I am a dead on as far as the incident command system. I get in trouble for it, to be honest. That is the way that I have seen things really work. I observed how President Trump completely threw the incident command system out the window. And that it was one reason why he could not keep a good administration. And then to turn around and to see, and I'm not bashing Trump, I'm just saying what I saw. And then to see Biden come in and all of his strategies are part of the incident command system. When you hear him talking about the critical structure, there was a number of things that he said that he's going to do it by. And if you know the incident command system, you know that he's following that system. And that system is being followed by every firefighter, every police officer, every organization. So he doesn't have to teach. He doesn't have to teach.
Wally, for our audience, briefly just describe what the incident command system is.
Incident command system is a management system that has been put into effect by the federal government to manage disasters. And it's made up of leadership, which is a incident commander, but that incident commander doesn't have to be an individual. It can be a group of individuals. And then it has what they call a command structure, which has a safety officer, which has a liaison officer, and it has a public information officer. Okay, the safety officer, it sounds like a real softy, simple job, but the safety officer in most incidents is the one that says you stop or you go. That's who the people in charge of really listen to, is the safety officer. Okay, no, we can't go in there because you're gonna lose everybody. Okay, the liaison, that's the person that deals with all of the agencies and organizations that are involved in the incident. They are like the communication person that deals with any problems or messages or whatever between the organization. And like I said, this does not have to be an individual. This can be a group of individuals. The public information officer, that's the person that gets the information out to the public. All right, that's the person that deals with the media. That's when you see the mayor talking with a group of people around him from different agencies. Those people are the public information people, unless it's the commissioners. All right, so therefore, if a news person runs up on a firefighter that's sitting down trying to catch his breath, and he says, "Oh, well, what's it like in there? I want to interview you." No, that doesn't work. He has to get his information from the public information officer. Now that's like your hierarchy. Now coming down to the more boots on the ground, you have a planning section. their thing is to plan out the activity. You just don't go in and start functioning. You have to get information. You have to assess the situation before you even go in to respond. You have to know what's going in. You have to know why you're going in. You have to know how you're going in. You have to know where things are. So that's the job of the planning. Then you have your logistics group. Those are the people that supply you with all of the equipment, the medical equipment, food, shelter, any kind of communication, any kind of equipment that you need to get the operation going. Then you have the administration. Of course, you got all this stuff going. You got to have records. You got to have money. You got to have, you got to have all kinds of paperwork flying. So in order so that you know what's going on. And all three of those support what you call the operations. The operations are the ones that actual boots on the ground that go in and do the work that has to be done, but they're supported by all of this. So this is a system that is nationwide, and in actuality, it's worldwide, because I've sailed on ships and I've seen ships in other countries following the same procedure. So this is a standard procedure, and this is how firefighters can come from New York and go out to California and stand shoulder to shoulder with firefighters from Nebraska and California and Arkansas to fight those fires, because they're all saying the same thing. And just to give you an example of this type of thing, in New York City, when you see cop cars running through the streets, they go into what you call a 1013, police assist. That means that one cop or some cops have a problem and they need help. Okay, so they don't play when that comes, right? So they call that a 1013. But in a 1013, but in Yonkers, a 1013 could be an accident. So if a police officer from New York hears a 1013 in Yonkers, then he's completely out of sync. So that is the reason why you got to have this coordinated effort, that everybody's speaking the same language, and when you have resources coming in, they can stand shoulder to shoulder with the people in the area. One of the reasons why I know this is worldwide, one of the things that I heard, when you listen to the news, is that the local authority has control over the situation. I don't care how the big United States comes into a small country, it's the local authority that has control over the situation. That's another part of it. And so there's no back and forth. Well, I'm in charge. Yo, you're in charge. No, the local authority has control. Now, if they can't handle it, that's a different situation. But as long as they can handle the situation, if they have the backup, the local control has it. So this type of management of disasters, it makes it easier. I won't say easy, easier for people to work together.
Mm-hmm. Well, 1 second here. Let me just interject. This is WHCR 90.3, the Voice of Harlem. You're listening to Community and Technology. This is a special broadcast on emergency preparedness. Our special guests today are Wali Abdun-Noor, Anesta Vannoy-Kwame, Carol Johnson, and Khalil Abdul-Wahhab. Wali's just been telling us about the incident command system and how important that is to have a uniform management system that sounds like it's a global system of communication and management of disaster situations, so that first responders, no matter where they're from, have a uniform system and a way to interact and work together. So Wali, are there some aspects of that system that we need to kind of put on the ground on a more community basis with community folks?
I think Cal hit it on the end, on the head. We need to start with the very, very, very basics of it. And the one thing about the incident command system, you don't have to have all the parts. You just need the parts that you need. So when we look at a situation, let's say the boots on the ground situation, we look at what's needed. One of the things about having different organizations coming in is that you want the organization to do what it does. You don't want a communication organization to have to deal with the plumbing of a situation. You don't want a organization that deals with social justice having to come in and deal with medical situations. So you want to keep organizations in the area that they are working in, where they have proficiency in. That's where you get the power of this system, because now you have people that are used to doing what they're doing. Okay, even to the point of something happens and you get some volunteers. Well, having volunteers walk up on you and saying, I want to help, is not a good situation in most cases. So, but you have organizations that can handle that kind of situation. So if you know that, you know, volunteers are coming to help you, and their help would be more detrimental than help, you, instead of just telling them no, you can send them to a organization that deals with volunteers that off the street. See what I'm saying? So what we need to do, I think, from my opinion, I'm not an expert, but in my opinion, is that we need to find out what, if an organization or a person or a group or a business says they want to get involved or they're interested, this is the group, like Khalil says, that understands the necessity of what we're doing. We need to find out what is their expertise. Everybody has an expertise. Even if they don't have an expertise, they are an expertise, because if they want to help, we need people that can just do things. So we need to find out what a person can do, what an organization, what their mission is, what they're good at, what they have what they're tooled up to do. You understand? Because that way, they're already ready to do the job that you're asking. And if you don't need them, you just let them sit down, and that's what they call your staging area. You just let them sit in the staging area. And the staging area could be, it doesn't have to be a physical area. It could be their home, it could be their business. Just stay there. When we call you, that's when we need you. You understand? So, and these are the concepts of ICS. And if a person knows ICS, then they can deal with it. And a simple thing like the staging area, you would say, that's nothing to it. I remember when we were first training, they put us in the staging area, and we sat there all day, and we were saying, this is a waste of time. You know, all day we're sitting around doing nothing. We could have been doing this, or we could have been doing that. No, they needed you there, because when they need you, they need you. And you might have gotten there 8 o'clock in the morning, and 5 o'clock in the afternoon is when they need you. They don't need to be running around trying to find what they need at that point. They know that you're there, and that's it. So this is the training that has to be, this is the kind of training that has to be put out. And for the politicians and whatnot, they need it the most, because for things like this flooding and stuff like that, I'm gonna give you an example. 145th Street and Broadway. what, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, they had a flood, and we notified everybody, we notified the politicians and everything that this is an area that gets flooded. And lo and behold, last week, the same place got flooded. So they got the warning 5 years ago. Nothing was done. You understand? This is what we talk about when we talk about mitigation. This is what we're talking about. You need to get the information, and then you need to do something with it. And things like subways and highways and all that kind of stuff, that the community can't handle that. The only way that the community gets involved in that is that they push the politicians to get the money to take care of these situations. And where the community can help is to identify the places in the community that need the mitigation.
Mm. It sounds like we need that as well as a catalog of community resources. You know, what folks are aware and what can they do and what do they have access to? Khalil, you had something you wanted to say? You're on mute, brother.
Stu, we're running a little bit at a time, and I still want to show some of the things for us sheltering in place. So
okay, well, this is Anesta, and with some real practical information for folks about sheltering in place. What is sheltering in place, first of all, Anesta?
I must stay home. There's a flood, there's extreme heat, there's a huge snowstorm, and I cannot leave home. So sheltering in place emergency kit should have all the things that you and your family, your pets may need during an extensive time that you have to stay at home. You may be experiencing a power outage, so you need certain things to be at home. And I just have a few things I want to show you. One is a small, and you cannot use this in the house if you have to go outside, but a grill where you could grill your food. This may be the only way that you can have something hot to eat during a emergency or power outage. Make sure that you have several bags of coal, charcoal around. You will
Even though
need-
they're small, though, Anesta, that should not be lit in the house, right?
Should not be lit in the house, not at all. No, it has to be outside. Not in a fire escape, it has to be outside. You should have bottles of Clorox. Clorox helps to purify water, but also for cleaning. You should have cans of food that you can open, and if you need to open up something, you may need to have things such as a manual can opener. Cereal is good, something that you do not have to cook. Shelf-safe milk is important. A NOAA radio is important. This is a hand cranked radio that can work just from the hand crank or batteries or electricity. A battery operated lights. You should have several of these around the house. Here's some food that you should have that you don't have to heat up, or you can heat it up if you have a grill going. These have top so that you don't have to use a can opener. Things like salmon or potted meat is also good. Things like cookies, potato chips. This is important. Something else that's very important is peanut butter. And of course, you may want some jelly to go on those crackers. Also, you should have cash in small denominations. I'm missing, water. There should be there should be a gallon of water per day, per person, and per pet. This is a lot of water. But if you're in a situation where you have nothing, no water, no way of getting it, you can't get out, this becomes a lifeline. And 1 gallon of water is not going to do it. Alcohol swabs is important. Thermometer is important. What else do I have here? I think that, and always a first aid kit. Now, those are just a few of the things that you should have in your kit. You may be able to keep your kit something like this, or even a smaller thing. Another thing you should always have is your important documents in something that is waterproof and that you can.
Anesta, we can't hear you. Speak in the mic, please.
I'm sorry. You should always have your documents, something that is waterproof, so that they would stay safe. So that's just a few of the things that you should have in a stay-at-home kit.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Anesta. I think Khalil had a point he wanted to interject. Khalil.
Khalil, you're on mute. You're on mute, Khalil.
Turn your mic on, Khalil, please.
Yeah, I don't want to disturb everybody. Yeah, what Wali was talking about, the ICS system that's expandable and contractible to aim at whatever you're having to deal with, is the big picture, the big structure. And within the structure, getting connected to those folks in the community, if we can reach out to, for instance, NYCHA tenant associations, they can talk to the entire building. What we want to do, I think what we need to do, talking about getting into the community, is yes, exactly what Wali said. People, entities that have expertise, exactly. But we also want to reach the general public. We can do that through organizations like tenant associations, churches, civic associations. These may or may not have individuals in it with expertise, but they have connections to the rest of the community. And they have a certain level of social capital that they can contribute to us, or contribute to the people who are trying to set up preparedness for the community. And I think that's how we have to aim at it. The overall structure would be the ICS structure that Wali spoke about. Expandable, contractible. And the internal communication has to be to those people who live in a community. We want them to make a plan, be prepared, and stay informed. And the informed part of it could be NYNET, New York Emergency North.
Okay, we're just about out of time. I'd like for final comments from everyone, and if there is a way for our audience to learn more, is there a website, is there email? Please share that briefly as we go around. Carol, start with you.
Yeah, you can reach out to HEN, Harlem Emergency Network at gmail.com. You can reach out to the East Harlem Co-ed, that's EHCOAD at gmail.com. And actually you can see HEN, we do a live broadcast Wednesdays, 9:30 on Facebook and YouTube. All of our recordings are archived, and you can, join us on Wednesday, 9:30 a.m., Facebook and YouTube.
Okay, Anesta, final comments?
Start preparing now. You should have been prepared. Start putting together a shelter in place kit. Also, you should have a run bag that has things in it such as money, your important papers, medication, things you would need in case you're out in the street and you have to run then and you can't get back in your house. These are some of the things that you need to begin to prepare. There's a lot more, but that's something that you can begin to work on.
Khalil.
What this was talking about is what's normally called a go bag. It means grab that bag and you're able to go. Whether you're going to a shelter or whether you're going to leave the state, that bag will have what she spoke about earlier, enough of the important stuff for your everyday living that you will have that, and it'll be right with you. A small amount of money, personal ID, medicine that you have to take. And each individual in your family should have a go bag. Even the pet should have a go bag because pets also may have to take medicine, and pets may also need to be quieted with a toy or something. So there's that. The idea is that what we want to do for the New York and for the Bronx and Upper Manhattan, have the community begin to make plans, get prepared, because these sort of outrageous events are going to happen in the future. And if we can be prepared, we can respond effectively and mitigate the damage because there'll be less damage to mitigate.
Okay, Wali, you got the final word. Unmute, brother. Unmute yourself, Wali, please. Wali Abdun-Noor with the final word.
If you want to get a little information about it, about what's going on in the community, you can contact the South Bronx Emergency Network at sben.coad@gmail.com. That's sben.coad@gmail.com. Or you can go to sben-inc.org. That's sben-inc.org. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And one other thing, if you can't remember none of that, go to 311 and ask for emergency preparedness.
Okay. One other site I wanted to throw out there is a WHCR emergency broadcast team. The website is whcrebt.org. Has up-to-the-date information on what's going on, links to emergency numbers, links to emergency information, and also a live broadcast from the radio station, let you know what's going on in an emergency. I want to thank Anesta Vannoy, Carol Johnson, Khalil Abdul-Wahhab, and Wali Abdun-Noor for a great broadcast today. Thank you all. This has been Community and Technology on WHCR 90.3, the voice of Harlem. Stay tuned for more news and information on WHCR 90.3. See you next week.